beautiful passage which I shared also by Wusin. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. But I feel in this one passage it is encapsulated the entirety of, or at least the most of what we speak about in Satsang. Maybe I can read it. And then if something comes up for some of you, you can also share about it. So when he says, the principle which is in you is talking to you through this Wusin. The principle which is in you is talking to you through this Wusin. What does it mean?
I feel it's like I'm pretending to be at a certain level of development of consciousness or something in the play, and a part of the play is that there are other forms which are also me, which are playing as more, as higher, or with more wisdom and more clarity, and so I'm speaking to myself, encouraging this aspect of it to expand.
The principle which is in you is talking to you through this Wusin. Very good. So it's very familiar actually, isn't it? It's your own presence, your own Satguru, which is speaking through the body of the Master, your own consciousness. Then he says, nothing can subjugate you to which you have not assigned value. Nothing can subjugate you to which you have not assigned value. So share about that. Also in the hangout we can say if someone wants.
Subjugate.
Subjugate means to oppress you or torment you. Yes.
It's like don't believe your next thought.
You can expand a little bit on it.
Nothing can subjugate you unless you assign a value to it. That means if you don't believe your next thought, it cannot lead you into idea of separation. No?
Yes, my dear, yes, we can hear you very well.
So this is basically saying that don't believe what the mind is saying, or rather don't assign any value to this idea of separation.
So is the assigning of value,
that is belief.
That is belief. Nothing can subjugate you to which you have not assigned value. So to what can we assign value?
To either thoughts or interpretation about what is happening.
And even the interpretation is what?
Thoughts itself. And the one who is assigning value is nothing but consciousness.
Yes. So it says nothing can subjugate you to which you have not assigned value. Therefore, if we don't assign this meaning, this belief, this value to the next thought, to the interpretation of what is, like he said very beautifully, then nothing can subjugate us. This is very beautiful because first he said that the Guru is your own presence, which is speaking through this construct called Wusin at the moment. then straight he gets to the end of suffering. He says nothing can subjugate you to which you have not assigned value. So therefore nothing can make you suffer without your belief. Very beautiful. Then he says, be like space, regardless of what appears in it. It isn't affected. Be like space, regardless of what appears in it. It isn't affected. Existence is one without any second. Existence is one without any second. Only in becoming apparent, it is obliged to divide into an apparent seer and an apparently seen. In that way, being is the beginning of duality, space and time, limited and temporary. So let's go slowly. Be like space. Regardless of what appears in it, it isn't affected. Existence is one without any second. Somebody wants to speak about this much? How to be like space? He says, be like space. Regardless of what appears in it, it isn't affected. How to be like space?
It's like don't touch anything that appears, or don't hold anything that appears.
What does that mean?
Not to identify with anything that appears.
How not to identify? So,
By not believing yourself to be anything that you can see.
So, in the appearance, when we start to call it me or mine, when we start to attach to it in this way, my life, my family, my sangha, my satsang, we start putting these my or me to it. That is the attachment. But even this attachment is impossible without belief and thought. The only way to identify, we cannot identify with something without our belief, isn't it? So, be like space is actually not a doing. You cannot be doing the I'm just being like space. You are like space unless you are believing otherwise. Regardless of what appears in it. Yes. So whatever appears, whatever comes and goes, if we don't say me, mine, we don't give it meaning, this should not be, this should be more like this. If you're not judging it, if you're not interpreting it, believing the interpretation, then automatically it is so, it is like this.
Further, you said be a space is not doing, but it's like I experiencing it could be active, like means it's okay, you see the thoughts coming, and if you don't believe, then there is the resistance coming while this thought is, that's also a thought, you see, but it could be active. Uh, It could be active, like being in that neutral place where nothing just coming back and back means I'm kind of actively doing that in a way because it's something which not very apparent because your first reflex is go back to thought and identify. So is it trying to
Yes.
actively being
We are
trying to
actively
be
staying with the presence.
trying to be present, stay with present.
He speaks also about that a little later. Existence is one without the second. When we're not labeling, when we're not taking the interpretations of these thoughts, then there is only oneness. We cannot separate something without first labeling it or interpreting it. Only in becoming apparent, it is obliged to divide into an apparent seer and an apparent seen. In that way, being is the beginning of duality, space and time, duality, comma, space and time, limited and temporary. Only in becoming apparent, it is obliged to divide into an apparent seer and an apparently seen. In that way, being is the beginning of duality, space and time, limited and temporary. What does it mean, only in becoming apparent?
It's like Nisha Kadatta Maharaj.
Yes.
I learned it. He said, for the concept of unity to exist, first must be duality. So it's like, as it is, we're so home that the idea of coming home can't even arise yet, but only in the being arising out of awareness, out of what we are, then only then can this concept of unity. Yes. But in truth, there's no even unity because there's no separation.
Anyone else?
I think he seems to say the second point is the main one that he says your default state is natural openness. And to get to something, either you have a sign value that can subjugate you, and out of this openness, even to create something, you have to create it by assigning value. Or I think what was this? What I dependency.
Yes, let me say that again. Only in becoming apparent, it is obliged to divide into an apparent seer and an apparent seen. In that way, being is the beginning of duality, space and time, limited and temporary.
Yeah. So only when you assign value and an attribute, something stands out. And when it stands out, you have one that stood out, and that's kind of what he's saying. And if the value is not, an attribute is not given to it, it has to resolve back to the ground.
I interpreted that as like, I actually don't know what we're doing, by the way. I'm 2 minutes late, but you're reading things and we're interpreting them?
Yeah.
Okay. I interpreted it as like out of the absolute, then when something becomes apparent, when it, like the presence comes, and then the presence comes to observe the observable objects, and actually, so in that case, because some witnessing presence comes, it needs to witness something. So just the appearance of this, the presence itself is the first, it's the beginning of duality.
It's very good. That's why it says being is the beginning of duality. It leads to space and time, is limited and temporary compared to the reality of what you are. Okay, then he says, to see that everything simply arises in consciousness is a liberating disposition. To see that everything simply arises in consciousness. That's why when we check what are the boundaries of our being, and say everything being experienced within this being, is anything outside of you as consciousness. Once you see that everything is in this one consciousness, one being. It says to see that everything simply arises in consciousness is a liberating disposition, because then the sense of separation is not there. Then the interpretation is not believed. I want to share more about this. To see that everything simply arises in consciousness is a liberating disposition. It's clear? Okay, then he says, when you identify with the body, its problems become yours. The further one moves away from the self-referential point of view, the closer one comes to reality. Differences in appearances and expression may be here, may be there, but they do not matter. When you identify with the body, its problems become yours. It's pretty clear. The further one moves away from the self-referential point of view, the closer one comes to reality. Now, terminology there can be a bit confusing, because in traditional Advaita we refer to the self as reality. But in Buddhism, maybe even in Zen, when they say self-referential in this way, they're referring to some appearance as myself. And when we move away from this perspective, either the body or the mind is no longer referred to as self, the closer one we become to the reality of what we are. Differences in appearance and expression may be there, but they do not matter. It's funny that just the previous sentence is a difference in the expression. The self is referred to differently, but ultimately that does not matter. Also, at another level, it could mean that you could have different appearances and expressions appearing and disappearing, but they do not matter. Finally, it is discerned that one is always knowing, never the known. There is only the greatness appearing as everything. Finally, it is discerned that one is always knowing, never the known. There is only the greatness appearing as everything. Wants to share about this? That's it.
It's like even this entire universe and this realm within which it expresses itself, and any other realm which could express any other form of consciousness, and any other dimension, and any other level of expression or experience is absolutely non-existent unless we know it. And actually, the only thing which we can really say exists is the knowing of it, because if we're not here to know it, then it doesn't exist, no matter how grand or spectacular it is.
It's always knowing, never the known. This is very important. Just the other day, maybe we had a satsang which is titled, if it can be known, then it is not you. So it is the knowingness itself that knows even presence. You see, because only from that point can we say something like being is the beginning of duality. Not from a personal perspective, not even from the perspective of being itself. not even as God, I am that I am, then we say that being is the beginning of duality. Only from the perspective of this knowingness itself. You see, never the object that is known, including the knowing of being itself. It is discerned that one is always knowing that I am always this knowing. Prior even to I am the knowing. Never the known. There is only the greatness appearing as everything. This knowingness itself is appearing as everything, including consciousness. This is enlightenment. The realization of the isness of what is, the where of what is, and the when of what is. It's very nice, isn't it?
The knowing, the knowing sentence that you said, can it also be interpreted as no object can ever be truly known? Can it ever be truly touched?
Yeah.
It's only the knowing that can be touched.
Yes?
Could it be that line being
Look at
interpreted?
it like this. Yes, but even if it is not this line, I feel very great beauty in what you say.
Yeah.
Because everything is known as the knowing itself.
Yeah. It can never be truly touched.
Yes.
You only know the knowing. That's how I like it.